your truck and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, July 8th, and surprise, I am here live. I thought I was going to take a vacation this week, and it didn't work out. Maybe it's because I failed to check the schedule soon enough and didn't realize Lisa was going to have to work some this week, and I still had some guests scheduled, so I'm here, and I do have well, first off, let me bring in my co-host today. He's actually here this morning. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning, KR. I'm so sorry that you misscheduled yourself and you're not on vacation.
Yeah, you know, it's how I do. I tried to call an audible last week. I looked at the holiday coming up and I'm like, next week would be a perfect time to take a vacation because I have a long weekend before it. And then over the weekend, Lisa's like, I have to work on Monday and Friday. I'm thinking, well, that's bad. And then I realized I had a guest today. And so that's, I should be a little more organized, I guess.
Well, shouldn't we all? I'll tell you what, it happens all the time. We took an unscheduled trip yesterday from Tuscaloosa, and we woke up Sunday morning getting ready to go to church and do everything our normal stuff, and then we got a phone call because our son Jude was visiting a young lady that he has some interest in up in Northwest Arkansas, which is a real popular place.
Yeah.
And he got sick and couldn't drive his car back, so we met the family halfway. So I spent 10 hours driving yesterday. I put my hours in yesterday. So,
yes, you did. Holy cow!
Yeah, so it was an interesting day for me too. But yeah, it felt like a 4-day holiday weekend with July 4th being on a Thursday. And so yeah, but I'm with you. I had just been on vacation the week before that, so. Yeah, it was an interesting. Feels like I haven't worked much in the last about 15 days.
Well, we're here now, and it's time to get to work.
Let's do it.
And
man, absolutely. Let's get down to it.
We have a guest today, right?
We absolutely have a guest today, 100%.
Would you like to introduce her, or should I?
I will. I tell you what. It's yeah. I'll tell you. You
okay.
Introduce. And I'll jump in with anything else.
Yeah, so one of the things you and I'll do a little preview here. One of the things you and I have talked about a lot, our partnership with Truck Stop is, strong, and the reason why we wanted to partner with Truck Stop is all the tools they have for people getting their own authority, which is a big push for us now. I think timing's right for a lot of reasons, and one of the reasons are the tools that are available that make it so much easier for even a single truck owner operator now to compete with the same kind of tools that big fleets have had for a while. One of the problems we know, though, is people pay for their subscription to Truck Stop and they're happy and they use the load board and everything's great, and they don't realize how many tools there are.
Yeah, 100%. There are. It's a very. You can imagine after doing something for 28 years and continuing to improve and offer more and more on a product that it would get to where it's covering a lot of angles of the marketplace, or most all the angles of the marketplace when it comes to moving a piece of freight. And yet a lot of times, and look, and I get it, trucking is a very busy business, and sometimes you go, well, I know Truck Stop is just kind of about this. Like, sometimes people don't know we have a factoring company. Sometimes people don't know we have a business management company called TMS. Sometimes people don't know that we do those sort of things that help in a business. And so it's super important that we kind of talk specifically about what are some of the other ways where carriers find success. And Kevin, before we bring Drew in, you and I also, one of the reasons why, one of the major driving reasons why we have this relationship between not just our friendship between the two of us, but between the two companies, is that our goals are the same for the owner operators, to help them create business success so they can enjoy the business that they've chosen to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are going to talk some about the tools. I'm sure you're involved in a lot of things in the company. I'm sure you've sat into meetings where
Sure.
the whole discussion is how do we lay things out on the website so that you can actually find these things? And it's one of the
Oh my
most
goodness. Yes.
challenging areas. The more things you add, the more difficult it
Yeah.
becomes to find
It
things.
is.
And good
Yeah.
navigation is awesome, but at some point, you just have to make people aware there are other tools in here.
Yeah, 100%. I'll never forget the day that we were redoing. When I joined Truck Stop in 2013, 2015, we were reinventing the whole platform and how it looks, how it feels, how it operates, so it operates more efficiently for the owner operator. And I remember I told Scott, I said, well, why aren't we changing, this, and this? And he said, well, we can't. And I go, well, what do you mean? We need to change everything. He goes, you can't change everything, Brent. He goes, that's bad for the owner operator. He goes, look, you can change this part of it, which is basically the visual part of the front end of the website. He goes, but you can't change the navigation, because our owner operators have been using this for a couple of decades and they know where that button is.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have to take time to go find the new button. He goes, so we change things very slowly at Truck Stop because it's not good for our audience, and we don't ever want to be a hindrance to getting in the way of a trucker finding the freight that they need. So we want to be the fastest, most efficient way. So that's really why I'm excited about Drew being on the show today, because she's our director of product management for the carrier end, and she came from the factoring side. So if you're going to talk a little bit about that, but she's just super sharp and really helping owner operators really run this piece of software the best way possible.
Excellent. Well, with that, let's bring her in. She's the director of product management specifically for carrier products, which I'm excited about. So, Drew, good morning and welcome to the show.
Hey there, how are you all doing?
Good. Great to have you here this morning. Brent and I are going to go get some coffee and we'll just let you talk about products for a while. That should be pretty easy, right?
That's right. Run with it, Drew. Run with it.
Oh, man. So 30 seconds or 30 minutes?
Yeah, 30
no,
minutes.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, like I said, my name is Drew Clegg, and I'm the Director of Product Over Experience at Truck Stop. I just actually moved into this role a few weeks back. It's been, I was in factoring before and expanded now into carrier experience, which is really exciting. So now I get to cover all sorts of products, or the team does, and I get to help them get their job done day to day. So I'm really excited to be here, talk a little bit about that, and be part of the conversation.
Got it. Well, speaking of factoring, we might as well just start with that. Had you heard me talk about factoring up until maybe just 6 months ago, you would not have been happy with me. I was one of those, absolutely don't do it. There's better ways. We can't spend that kind of money on factoring. And then when I really looked at Truck Stop's factoring product, there were some real advantages to it. Not, you don't have to factor everything. That's a big one. All the control you had on it. And then, even then, I was still, look, I can show you better ways of doing this. But now, looking at the market we're in, and the market I think we're going to be in for a while yet, I've kind of changed my tune on factoring. There is a place for it, and it is a good tool, and Truck Stop has all the options you need to make it a good tool, and to be able to use it when it really works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's all sorts of pros to factoring. I think, when I think about our billing team that's sending out invoices on behalf of carriers today for those invoices that we've purchased, and I think I see all the different methods that every single broker needs in order to get that bill and to get it paid. I think this is a lot of overhead for an owner operator to keep up with, especially if they're new to the business, for them to think about, which brokers need to be invoiced which ways and what to include on what invoices, and how do you make sure that you're sending the right paperwork in. And that's something that our factoring service definitely helps with. Make sure your paperwork is clean, make sure that it's sent to the broker the exact way it needs to, so that we can get paid on our side. But you don't even have to think about or worry about that. We do that, and we just pay you up front. So there's definitely value there, time savings, and time is money.
Yeah, one of the things I think of, and when you were just talking about, invoicing brokers, I go way back when there was really only one way to do it. You sent something in the mail. I guess I'm pretty old these days. Now all this technology that was supposed to make everything easier can also be really confusing. Like the other day, I
Absolutely.
started kind of a new little project with somebody, and I said, "Look, I can cut you a check, or I'll give you a credit card number." And they're like, "I'll just send a request with Stripe or with Venmo, or there's so many different ways to message people now. That makes me crazy because I miss messages all over the place. There's so many different ways to pay. Technology is powerful, but it can also be really confusing, and our listeners don't have a lot of time to try to figure out all the technology. So I really appreciate you coming on today and helping with this, because Truck Stop has so many tools, and Brett and I have been talking about this for years. We see people that are already paying for the tools, they're not using them. And then we find out, well, they didn't
Yeah.
realize it was there, or how to use it, and we all get into a pattern. We see the pattern on the load boards where they log in, they search for a load, they book the load, and they move on. But I don't see a lot of the tools being used for research, for rates, to find the good brokers that they want to work with the right freight for them. And the more I looked at the system, the more I realized there's just a lot of good tools there that aren't being used.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually something that we were just talking about in a recent strategy session for carrier experience. Members of the first team, and some from engineering, some from product, we were getting together and talking about some of the challenges that we see new carriers face. And we were actually looking at retention and how new carriers are using our software, how long they're in it, how many months they're staying on, and seeing an opportunity for us to potentially educate or share, basically looking at the features that they're not using and how can we market them more, how can we do a better job of educating them on these additional features. That way, if maybe they're not getting as much value out of one piece of the software, we can give them more pieces to make it more valuable for them so that they can find what they're looking for. I think one of those is definitely allowing carriers to look up broker information, for example, to determine whether there are features. A lot of these features also exist in our Pro plan, and so they may not be available out of the gate for some, and they don't realize that they can upgrade and have all these additional features for just a little bit more. And so I think that's probably something that we're going to be promoting a little bit more over the next year, is really just digging into what are our customers not using that they could, and how can we make sure that they are.
Yeah, and speaking of the Pro plan and kind of upgrading to get some of those additional tools, I've said forever, if you're a single truck owner operator, that the cost to go to the Pro plan is almost meaningless. There are so many tools in there that I can show, if you use that tool one time this month, you've covered the extra cost. I mean, that's how powerful some of these tools are. You use them one time, and they've covered the extra cost of having the Pro plan. So I encourage just about everybody I talk with to upgrade. The base level's excellent. You find all the loads, you can do all kinds of great stuff, but the upgrade to me is really worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Brent.
Hey, Kevin, Kevin, Drew was just talking about the way in which we vet brokers, and we vet carriers too. By the way, we vet everybody on the system. That's super important in order to protect your business, not just like in days to pay and things like that, which is super important. And are they a quality person? But are they still in business? Have they had any infractions? Are the things that the carrier has access to at the tip of their fingers to say, okay, well, is that a broker I want to work with? And as you and I have said many, many times, Kevin, over many years, decades, find 3 to 5 of them that you really can build a business with, and then fill in with the general market everywhere else to be able to create the best profitability. I mean, to me, that's when you can search a database of for the most part, the almost 100% of the active broker market base out there or market availability out there. That's a big deal if you're a one truck owner operator. You have access to the entire marketplace. And so you're able to really make some decisions on your business. And then you have choice. If somebody, I remember talking to an owner operator in Mid-America who had a real bad time with one broker. And I said, well, there's thousands out there to do business with. Why are you so concerned about them? Just find the next one that can help you.
Well, you talk about the whole market and how many brokers, and they're all there. But you don't want to use them all or even attempt to use them all. We've talked about this a lot. Do the work up front, and that's what these tools are all about. Find the brokers that match your criteria, and that's just the start, because there will be a lot of those. You have so many brokers in the system that even if we put pretty strong criteria on it, you're still going to get a big group. And now it's time to start, digging a little deeper, maybe testing them out, try a load with them, but really be specific about building that small group of brokers that you work closely with. The number I like to put on it is, if I have 5, what I consider my core brokers, I don't know that I would ever need more than 5. 3 to 5 is a good number. I've got those. I should be using them for about 90% of my freight. And then that oddball where, they get me a great load going somewhere, but I don't have a lot of contacts there. Now I can hit the load board and pick something up. I just see when people really work on that strategy, their revenue goes up. And it's one of those things that once you've kind of got it set, you don't have to mess with it much. It will really free up a lot of your time if 90% of your freight is kind of being brought to you by that core group of brokers you're working with.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's interesting to think about. I think one of the things that is interesting, though, is when you're a new carrier, right? And, building those relationships isn't something that just happens overnight, right? You can't snap your fingers and magically have, 5 brokers that absolutely love you and want to bring you 90% of your freight, right? So where do you get started, and how do you start building those relationships, and how do you even, know what's out there? And I think that's where TruckStop comes in, with our load board as a starting point. But obviously, TruckStop has all sorts of opportunities or all sorts of different products you can use. I think what's really special and different about TruckStop, and this is something that we're continuing to build into the load board experience, is the alternative or other products that we offer and the data that gives to us. So, for example, because we offer factoring in-house, we have information on broker days to pay, on which brokers are bringing up more disputes, or which ones are potentially problematic from a payments perspective, from a funding perspective. That's available in our load board with broker, for example. So, I think there's all sorts of different load boards out there. There's ways for you to find freight, but what we have is additional data as well that then can help shape, basically you can look at load details and help shape your decisions around who actually would be good for me to work with as I start to build my business and build those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, we've, Brent, you and I have been watching this for a long, long time, and I could go back, kind of outline this. I really think as an industry, we've been moving towards more single truck carriers rather than the lease to a carrier model. And it's been happening slow, but I think in the last couple of years, there have been some things that have really got my attention, and it's why I'm putting such a big focus on this, making it really, really easy to get your authority and operate profitably under your authority without trying to go learn all this stuff, to give them a system, and the tools at TruckStop are a big part of that. But if we just look at one, the push to eliminate independent contractors, this is still a really big push, and the trucking industry would be decimated by this if we don't have another model. I mean, we know that it's mostly small carriers by far that move all the freight, and a lot of those are leased to carriers. But that model's really starting to shift, and some of it is political. The government's trying to kind of do away with independent contractors. The other part, though, is that it is easier now because of technology and tools. It's not nearly as labor intensive as it used to be for one truck to try to do all these things. So that's really what we want to talk about today. What kind of tools does TruckStop have to really make this easier? And I don't see this trend changing. I think we're going to see more and more one-truck carriers come into the market.
Well, yeah, you bring up a great point, and I want Drew to jump in here and talk about some of the practical ways that you can do that through the platform. But I think about this. I think about, okay, you've got, so this is for every carrier out there. You got a marketplace that you participate in. So your one truck competes with Knight-Swift US Express that has 27,000 trucks. So in a sense, you compete with them because
right.
You have access to a marketplace that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of loads every day at your fingertips, right there, just on your computer or on your mobile. You got access to it. But here's why I'm bringing this up. 50% of the active, and what I mean by active are the active brokers. 50% of the active brokers that are out there are brokerage parts of a big fleet, a big truck fleet business. So they don't just participate on the contract side where they're moving big, 100 loads or 500 loads or 5,000 loads for Procter & Gamble. They're participating in the spot market as well through their brokerage, which is where the single truck owner operator has their best advantage in moving things. And it's all long haul freight. So it's all this one giant part of this freight where you're competing across the board. And I bring this up, Kevin, because an owner operator has access to all this data, not just like the available freight that's out there, but the rates that it's going for, the lane densities that in other words, how much freight is in that lane, what's your negotiation ability in that, the quality of broker, the quality of partner you would want to work with. So you have all that at your fingertips. And I'm glad Drew can talk specifically about some of those things. But I bring that up because that's super important to know that you are competing not just against other single truck owner operators, you're competing against big fleets as well.
That's a good point. And let me talk about why I'm so excited about these kind of tools, because my take and what I try to teach people is stop competing with those big carriers. You don't want to compete with them in their arena. They'll kill you every time. They can run on really small margins. They can run at a loss occasionally. That's not a good thing to do ever for an owner operator. And the way you avoid that is you build this core of brokers that understands what makes you unique, and they know how to find the freight that works for you. And our goal, there's two ways we can compete or just beat the big carriers. I don't even want to compete with them. We can beat the pants off them all day long if we know how. And one of the ways is we can control cost way better than they can. That's a big one.
Fair. Yeah, absolutely.
The other one, though, is we can handle much more unusual freight than they can. They're really out there.
Absolutely.
They want the truckload palletized, easy as can be, drop and hook, anything to make the freight easy is what they're after. And they'll take smaller margins to do that. We've got to avoid that. You don't want to be messing with that freight and trying to compete with them when those margins are so small. So we want the tools to help us find the brokers and the load that keep it. We want them to think they have to compete with us, and they can't. And that's the way it should be. But we should understand that there's freight out there that the big carriers don't handle all that well. And that's the stuff we want to get to. And Drew's here to help us figure out how we're going to do that at TruckStop, right, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think where we should take this conversation more specifically. I feel like we're still kind of high level here. Maybe we start with the search to actually find the freight that you're needing and how TruckStop can help with that. And then we can talk about, once you found it, how you can negotiate, right? And what we can help with there.
Perfect.
To start, TruckStop has all sorts of different features, even within the search. First of all, we have our web application, but then we also have a mobile application. So if you're on the go and you need to find something fast, or you're sitting down and just have your phone on you, you also have access to the same information. The UI obviously is a little simplified for a phone, but very similar features there. So you have this in two places, whether you're on a computer or you have your phone in your hand. But to start, as you're making a search, there's all sorts of features within the search itself that can help you find the freight you need. To start with, figuring out kind of where like as you start a search, as you're thinking about origin to destination, then you have all sorts of information within that you can use as you're making your decision. Things like, rate per mile, and looking at information like how soon something was posted or how recently something was posted, things that you can search within or sort within also to help manage. And then you can take the loads that you're looking at, select them, and then compare them side to side outside of the actual search results. So as you're kind of narrowing down your search, or once you've executed an initial search, you then can click into those loads and view the details kind of side by side, and then start to narrow down exactly who you may want to start calling from there. Within the actual load details, as you're clicking into a load that you think might be a good fit for you, you then can also see information about the broker. You can see their rating. You can see their average days to pay if we're using Pro. And so there's all sorts of, basically everything that you would need to from an information perspective you can see in one place to compare these loads side by side and then start making your calls.
That's powerful. And I think the more you use that tool, a couple things happen. One, you start finding better and better freight, but you start understanding what better freight is. The more, we see so many times owner operators, and I get it, they're in a hurry. They make money when the wheels are turning. And many times they kind of shortcut the process, and then you're stuck with a less than stellar load. Sure, the wheels are turning, but if you would just take a little more time up front. And one of the things that the tools at Truck Stop allow, if you take the time, is kind of a system. Build a system when you're looking for the freight. And part of the reason, we want to have those 3 to 5 good brokers is that we don't have to do this all the time. Those 3 to 5 brokers will do it for us. It's the other time that maybe that 10, 15, 20% of the time we've got to just hit the load board itself. We could make that process so much better if we can get them to understand the tools and kind of build their system on how they go in and find that load, check the rates on the load, make sure it's, a good rate for that lane at the time. If it's a new broker, some tools to make sure you're going to be good with that. So this is one of those times where having a system can really make things a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the same time, as you're thinking about capacity that you're trying to fill, there's also another feature that Truck Stop has, which is the ability for you to post your truck. And that also is something that can be working for you while you yourself are on the road. So in the case that, you're traveling, you don't have time to search, you can post your availability, post your truck, where you're going to be, and then have brokers reach out to you in the time that you're waiting, or, you're executing something else and you're not searching for yourself, right? So there's two sides of that capacity play if you have capacity, not just you searching, but also brokers finding you based off of what you have available, assuming you post it. So that's another feature that we have that may not be used as much, but it's there.
Yeah, and I'll certainly comment on this, and I think Brent knows how I feel about that. That, to me, may be one of the most powerful tools that isn't being used nearly enough. We had a great discussion on this topic at the CMC. Here's why, and I get it, but there's so many easy ways around the problem. People say, oh, I'm not posting. I get so many junk calls. I get every broker that wants to push this load or that load, and my phone blows up. I get it. I know that can happen at times, especially when, we went through a couple of years there where there was just a lot of demand. But there's so many easy ways around that. We talked about it. You can add, I don't remember the service, but I've got it somewhere. I've got a link to it. You can add a second line to your current phone. That's how easy this is. You could go buy a burner phone, which is really easy. You can add a second line to the current phone you already have, which is pretty cheap, and only use that line to post with. And that way you have a little more control over those calls. You let them go to voicemail without missing all your other calls. You don't have to be staring at your phone all day. But we teach negotiation. And, I've said many, many times that I'm going to use that 90% number. 90% of the rate is just pure supply and demand. And it confuses a lot of people in trucking, because supply and demand in trucking is really more complicated than almost any other industry because one, supply and demand gets down to the lane level. You could be pulling out of the same city, but depending on where you're going from that city, the rates could be wildly different just because of supply and demand. Who doesn't, want to go to South Florida because it's hard to get freight back out? There's all those scenarios all over the country that confuse this, and then it can get even more confusing the deeper we get into this. But understanding that 90% is supply and demand. What's the other 10, maybe even 15%? One, it's understanding what the rate is in that lane. And the brokers all know this. The brokers are staring at rates all day long. They deal with rates all day long. They deal with negotiations all day long. Drivers drive, and they're at such a huge disadvantage when it comes to this. But that's why we talk about these tools. These tools give the small carrier all those same advantages to understand this. I believe the other 10 to 15% is knowing supply and demand in the lanes you're running in. That's why you should probably not just have 3 to 5 good brokers. You should probably just have a couple lanes you specialize in so you understand them better.
Oh, for sure.
And then the ability to negotiate and provide really good customer service. I think that's where that other 10 or 15% of the rate comes in, and that's the really important part. Anybody can go on the load board, grab a load, and get paid for it. Can you go on there and find that really good paying freight that fits your schedule and fits your lanes and what you like to do? And that's really the difference these tools can make. They'll get us that other 10 to 15% of the rate that a lot of people are just missing out on.
Hey, Kevin,
Yeah,
I think there's, hey, Drew, real quick, Kevin, also, this is super important. Then I want Drew to jump into like the execution part of it. So it's also important to know, you talked about lanes. That's super important. You also need to know seasons.
Yes.
What season are you in? You can make more money hauling this in this season than that in this season. The other thing is understand the region that you're in as well. Like if freight is depressed at this in the next 60 days in this part of the country, the Southeast or the Midwest or somewhere, and you can make more money hauling out of Texas or out of California or somewhere that has a better demand at that time. It's all about the bottom line because trucks can go anywhere. So super important. So Drew, jump in there with your thought.
Yeah, well, you were talking about really getting to understand lanes and why it's nice to focus on some lanes. But once again, if you're thinking about someone who's new authority carrier just getting started, it's going to take some time for you to build up information about those lanes to understand what rates are, what demand is there. And that's where some of our rate insights and decision tools come into play and can help with that. As you're searching, you can exist in the market, but you can also see into a single load what the demand for that load is, what the demand within that lane is. You can see how many loads are posted, how many trucks are available, what kind of searches are happening there. And so you can get a view into the supply and demand that exists on a load when you click into it in our load board. We have rates information there as well that can help you when you're thinking about the negotiation process. But before negotiation, just thinking about what you could potentially get. And that's taking data that we have from obviously what's been posted, but then also other information that we have from other tools that we offer. So, this same information, TruckStop is offering products for both brokers and carriers. And so what's really nice about that is the amount of data that we have on both sides that we can use to help carriers make better decisions, right? If we know what brokers are seeing, we know what they are demanding. We're seeing kind of the supply side as well. And so we can then use that to make recommendations, and all that is built into our load board. And we're looking into the details of a posting. We make recommendations as well. So those decision tools are available and part of that pro subscription too.
Excellent. Hey, Brent.
Yeah.
Nothing like putting you on the spot, but I do this to you all the time. I just had a really great thought, and it's not a new thought. The thought's been there for a while. This is just a good time to kind of see if we could pull it off and solidify it. We can talk about these tools all day, and I try to kind of keep it, high level. I know I keep going back to that kind of big picture thing. Details on this kind of stuff are pretty hard in just audio. Would we be able to put together a couple hours, maybe 2 hours of actual product demonstrations and make it one of our CMC days?
Oh, for sure we could. Yeah, no, we'd love to do that. That's that's kind of like, Kevin, when you came to Phoenix and did our user conference.
Exactly.
When
Yeah.
we spent 2 days going through the why. You talked about the why of the product, and then we talked about the what of the product when we started doing the show. Absolutely, we could 100% do that. That's we'd love to do it. That's part of who we are. It's why we exist. It's why Drew gets a smile on her face when she starts talking about how helping carry. If you haven't met Drew yet, but Drew's got one of the best smiles ever. So, but it does puts a smile on her face thinking about the way we can help our carriers. Because in the end, here's the deal, Kevin. In the end, the spot market and moving freight in the spot market begins and ends with the carrier. It doesn't begin and end with the broker. The broker is obviously a vital, required part of it. But if you don't have a truck to get things places effectively and efficiently, you don't have a marketplace. So the carrier, that one truck, two truck owner operator, is the most important part, and that's why it's the most important to truck stop.
Yeah, and I thinking back now, that was one of the conferences that I really had a good time with this topic. Sometimes I get frustrated with this topic because I am very big picture, and then people want the details. Well, how do I do that specifically? Right. Which tool? How do I use it? When do I use it? And that's not my strong point. I know how to use them. I can go figure it out for myself, but trying to really explain it to somebody else, and that worked so well that time where I got to talk about the why. Here's why you would do this, which I'm good at. Mm-hmm. But then we had the people there that could say, here's how you do it. Here's the tool you need. Here's the order we're going to do this in. And I think that's really powerful.
Oh, man, is it powerful?
For sure. Yeah. And I think that, Truck Stop actually has quite a bit of content on this already. And I think that this is something that, it's easy to pay a subscription and, use the basic features and not really dig into the details or take the time to watch some of our instructional videos or see what other ways you can use our product. We have tool tips, things like that within our software itself. But I think if you are a user or you're considering using Truck Stop, once you do, obviously you utilize the help that's there within our product itself. I think that's something that often carriers aren't doing just because they're not thinking about doing that in their downtime, but there is so much that these tools offer. I would love to be able to do demos, and if that's something that we can set up, that would be great, Kevin. But for those that do have Truck Stop and maybe are wondering if they could get more value out of it, those tool tips, those recommendations, look at the go to our YouTube channel, for example.
Yeah.
See, we have this content, so take advantage of it.
No, that's it.
We also send out email campaigns as well to kind of promote some of that content. So click into those, maybe look in your inbox on some of our educational content that we've sent out. Take a look at that because there's all sorts of tips. And also, we're constantly releasing new features and updates to our software to help as well.
Excellent. I love those ideas.
Yeah,
Kevin, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, here's what I think about this. I think about, and you talked about this a second ago about how many carriers are moving long haul freight. How many, owner operators. Let me bring it down to the basic, which is the owner operator. It's about 30 to 40% of the one-way long haul for hire freight that's moved by the owner operator category within the spot market. It's the value that the owner operator brings is tremendous. And you talked about the number of carriers in this marketplace. Well, we doubled them because of the pandemic. We doubled them in the marketplace. Now some have left, and a lot of those are sort of the ones that are they're either operators that don't operate efficiently, or we also saw this. The ones that are on the fringe. We saw a lot of expedited and hotshot haulers coming into the spot market during the pandemic because I think anybody can make money running $6 to $7 a mile freight. Okay,
yes, that's right.
When you get down into when you get down into the I got to know how to be efficient. I got to know how to use my time. I got to have a business plan, all those sort of things. You're going to need to be able to operate this like a standard operation business. So, but I just think about the number of carriers that came in. And by the way, we're still more than 50% above where the marketplace was prior to the pandemic. So there's still lots of carriers. And I fully believe, this is why I was excited to have Drew on today. I fully believe that if you know how to use any platform, and I hope you're using TruckStop, if you need to use other places to find freight, please use those too, because we're for you creating the best success in your business. But if you know how to use these products, you can move fast, because saving time, and Drew mentioned this just a minute ago, maximizing your time is the most important part of this, because when the wheels are turning, that's time too. But maximizing your time to finding the right load, getting the right load on your truck, that's a big part of your profitability as well. So I'm excited about that part of it.
Hey, I'm going to make my team crazy like I normally do, because I just had an idea and I like to talk about my ideas.
What's new?
Yeah, I know. So their heads are about to explode when I say this on the air, but I'm going to say it anyway. And this isn't a guarantee that we're going to do it. I'm just talking out loud. My tribe knows I do that all the time. I'm thinking that when we schedule this truck stop kind of tutorial demo, it's going to be more than that. We're going to design this as like we're going to show the system, and I'm going to kind of lay it out the way I would do it. Here are the tools I would use. Here's the order. Here's why I'm doing it. I think that maybe we should open that week up to anybody. Give them kind of a CMC preview.
Oh, yeah.
See what goes on.
Sure.
In the CMC itself, so you can get kind of a sneak peek under the hood, what goes on in the CMC. And this would be such a great topic because it would help a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, I think we don't have a huge issue with that. We're happy to do that and be a part of that, and do the sort of the 101 education on the front end on what is freight matching, or how do you operate in the spot market, and then we lead into the 201 and 301 with Professor Kevin, who's leading the CMC on the strategy around building your business and what are the things around that. So yeah, that would be great, Kevin. I think that's a good lead in.
Yeah, and like I said, you kind of made me think about that when we went back to that conference. It was really powerful to do it that way. It was, I think, one of the times we were really successful at helping people build that system and understand it. And I still hear from people today that still use it. And that's my point. Once you take the time to learn these tools, I know it's frustrating and we're all, tired of software and trying to figure out how to work things. But this one is so important to a small carrier that once you take the time to do this, then it's kind of on autopilot after that. In fact, it's what people don't realize is if you do a little bit of work up front, you're going to save a ton of work every day, every week. That's the real power behind these tools. If you do a little bit of work up front to learn them, build that system, understand why you're doing it, then your life and your business become so much easier. Drew, would you agree with that? Yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve up here, but it's really worth the time.
Yeah, of course there's a learning curve, but what I also want to share a little bit about you. There's a side of product management or product design called UX, or user experience. And at TruckStop, we also have invested heavily, and we have an entire user experience and user research team that's dedicated to getting to know our end users. So in this case, or my case, carriers, and helping design and build our software in ways that make it not as hard as you think it is. So I think oftentimes we think about technology as this new thing that's so complicated, but also TruckStop is actively investing in research to build tools in a way that will make your life easier and won't be as difficult to use as you might assume, right? I mean, we run tests, we do beta groups, we have conversations with carriers day in, day out. And so this isn't like we just threw some features together and hope you figure out how to use it. We've researched, we spend time getting to know carriers and getting feedback and iterating on design so that the way that data is presented to you or the way that these features work is as easy as it possibly could be, and so that you will use it, right? We're not just throwing things out there hoping for the best. We're researching and studying. And so while there is a little bit of a learning curve, it actually isn't that hard. We've designed these things in ways, and we're presenting the data to you in ways that makes it easy for you to make decisions and use what we're providing. So Don't assume that it's going to be a ton of work. It actually doesn't have to be. We've done the research and are designing this in a way to make it easier for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've got about 15 minutes left. Brent, is there any specific tool we want to talk about right now?
I'd love for Drew to kind of dig in a little bit more into what we call lane densities. In other words, when you do a load search from point A to point B, it brings up here's how much freight is in from where you're looking at and how much freight is in where you're going to. Because to me, one of the biggest efficiency tools that's not really used by as many owner-operators that need to be, which is, how are you looking at the load you need maybe tomorrow? That's one thing. But how are you looking at the loads you need after that load and the load you need after that load? And how can you build, more sort of a predictable pattern where you're not having to go back to the load board? So Drew, can you talk a little bit about, looking lane densities and then building out like a trip?
Let me jump in here real quick, kind of set the stage for this, Drew, because I see this a lot, and we're in this pattern right now, and you two tell me if you see this as well. So we just came through a couple of years where, Brent, you mentioned $5 and $6 freight. I mean, we were watching it happen.
Yeah.
I watch social media all the time, and I saw the pattern of nobody was really complaining about the brokers during that time. They were almost mocking them, right? It made me crazy. They were almost like, oh, that broker called me and offered me $4.50 a mile, and I just laughed at him and hung up. I mean, that kind of stuff makes me crazy. But here's what happens after we come through a pattern like that. I've watched this over the years. Now we're in a pattern where rates are they're pretty low, right? I mean, we're down, hopefully, at the bottom. I'm not sure if we found the bottom yet, but I hope we're at the bottom. We may be here a while. But, Drew, are there still strong rates in certain places? Don't we still see that no matter how bad the overall economy might get? There are still some rates we look at and go, oh, that's really nice freight there. But here's what happens. Again, I'll go back to the fact that the brokers have the information at their fingertips all day long. They know where there's freight density, and if there's freight density, that will drive rates up. It's supply and demand. The owner-operator driving his truck doesn't have that advantage to be staring at the data all day long, but they have to at least understand how many times and I'm not complaining about this. This is how business works. How many times in today's market does the broker get to pad his margin a little bit because everybody thinks all the rates are just down? It's easier to move a low rate load right now than it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago. But you can also, there's some good freight out there, but it's not that hard to understand as the broker. The carrier probably doesn't know this is a really strong lane today. And I can probably get away with, a little bigger margin here. We want to equalize that. We want to make sure the carrier is looking at, maybe not as often, but is looking at the same information that the brokers are looking at, and they have a much better chance of negotiating that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that we offer that can help with this. Part of our load comparison tools do this. There's two pieces there. There's what we call the load to truck ratio. And that ratio is going to indicate the number of loads that's actually available in our marketplace compared to the number of trucks in a specific area. And we have all sorts of data that's helping us with that. And then also all of our search data as well. So we know what carriers are actually searching for to be able to help with that as well. When you think about that load to truck ratio, that's basically your insight into demand. So if there is a high load to truck ratio, that means that there's higher demand, which for a carrier, that's great, right? Because that then allows you to leverage or negotiate better rates if you know that there's a lot of loads and not that many trucks here,
yes.
Right? And that also, if you're looking for a better opportunity there, something that does pay higher, you also can look at that to see where there are greater opportunities. There's another feature that exists in both our search, and then you can also just look at it separate from search, which is our load density maps. And that's a visual tool that shows where loads are most concentrated. And it's actually a really great view. You're looking at a map of the US and you can see color-coded states within this nice little gradient to see where density is higher or lower. And that also is a really easy way to search too. So you can actually click in areas that have high demand, and you would know as you're looking through those searches that you could negotiate higher rates in those regions. And as you search by rate per mile, you will see or typically see that high demand. So, oftentimes, even if you're not seeing the perfect rate as it's listed on the load board, as you're using those tools like the load density maps and you're seeing this load to truck ratio and you're making the decision, that can also help with your negotiation. So just because a load is posted at a particular rate doesn't mean that's definitely going to be the rate. There are opportunities for you there. And when you have the tools and the data in front of you, you can see, hey, there's not many trucks available. I'm there. I'm going to be available. Here is, this is what I would like for that, right? So it gives a carrier more control over the negotiation when they have access to see those load to truck ratios and are looking at those load density maps.
Absolutely. I want to go back because I think I failed to make this point. We were talking about this, the idea of posting trucks, and I said, you can easily eliminate all the negatives that people think there are to posting. Here's the big positive. When I'm negotiating, I want somebody to call me, not me to call them. That one change makes a huge difference. That is such a
big, Kevin.
I don't think people understand how big that is. And that is the biggest reason, in my opinion, for posting your truck. One, you're going to get access to brokers that you may not find, and they may turn out to be really good brokers for you to work with. It's just another way to meet and possibly build some relationships with good brokers. But the bigger thing to me is just the psychological impact of what changes in the negotiation when they call me. And one other thing, Brent,
that's great.
I don't know if you saw Noel's email today. I just got it 4 minutes ago. So
I haven't seen it yet. Okay.
Well, listen to this first sentence. After what you just said a couple minutes ago, listen to this first sentence. The data this week is a great example of the necessity of understanding seasonal trends. Didn't you just say that?
Oh yeah. Yep. Sure did. Yeah. Understanding seasonal trends.
It's Noel's opening line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it is important to understand, because sometimes you can look at a marketplace and not understand why something's going on. But if you understand that it normally does this in the season that we're in, I'll give you a for instance on this. The market demand index has been, last week was 80. The week before that, it was 72. We just entered into a holiday week. All right. So last week, I know everyone thinks July 4th was one day. It wasn't. It was 2 days.
Right.
Because a lot of people took off on the 5th as well. So the overall freight posted inside the spot market dropped dramatically. All right. So the overall drop in the MDI, the pressure in the market dropped by 26 points. That's a giant drop.
Wow.
And people go, oh no, well that's terrible. The marketplace not doing well week over week. No, not a big deal. Because if you go, I went back. Here's what I did. This was great, Kevin. Talk about seasonality. I went back to 2017.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so in 2017, in the same week, 26 to 27, we just finished week 27. It dropped 8 points in 2017, 20 points in 2018, the big market. Remember the big market in 2018?
Yeah.
It dropped 13 points in 2019. Oh, in 2020, the great crazy pandemic market, it went reverse. It increased 5, but of course, that's a crazy outlier market.
Right.
Then back to 21, decreased 15. In 2022, it held. In 2023, it dropped 6. So here's the thing, and this is why I always put a holiday warning on holiday weeks when I report the data. It did exactly what the market normally does at this time. So it's behaving normally. Not a big deal. It'll come right back to where it was the next week. So I just say that the seasonal part and understanding that is super important.
Well, let's talk about something else that is seasonal and has a huge impact on freight sometimes, and other times not so much at all. And it's harder to predict, and we're experiencing it right now. Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Hurricanes have a
Yeah, I was gonna say,
huge impact on freight, and they're so unpredictable. I mean, we're right down to the last day sometimes. Where before this one, I don't know if I talked to you about this. I think I did. The way this hurricane could have gone, could have hit Mexico, and they early on they were predicting that
Right.
there was a pretty.
Right.
Had
Yeah.
it hit Mexico, it may have hurt the freight in the U.S. because Mexico wouldn't recover. They don't
Sure.
recover as well. It takes them a lot longer. We would lose a lot of that cross-border freight for a while. On the other hand, if it hits Texas, it should increase the freight because of FEMA loads and all the other things that happen around hurricanes. And we were right down to the last couple of hours before we knew what this one was doing.
Oh, we were. It was absolutely wasn't. It turned and went into Texas, and fortunately, it wasn't super as strong as it was. It wasn't as strong as it could have been, and it went in and hit the Houston area, and I think they said they had 1.5 million people without power. Here's the thing. And I pay attention to the weather very, very directly. The prediction for hurricanes this year is greater than normal. In other words, they're predicting more hurricanes than normally each year. And so they say there's an 85% chance. This is from NOAA, the National Oceanic Society people, the government people that predict all these things. And they feel like there's going to be between 17 to 25 named storms in this season. Yeah, no, big time. So why does that? Depending on where it hits, it changes things. And so the FEMA loads, all the different, but it also changes the extemporaneous area going in and out of that town. Houston is a massive freight city. Yeah, so it changes down there too. So super important.
Here's something else we should think about. A lot of people will say, well, you know what? I know that hurricanes increase loads, but a lot of people don't like messing with some of those loads. You've got FEMA involved. That changes things. You might be going into areas where there aren't a lot of services, and you kind of better know what you're doing if you're going to head into those areas. But here's the thing. You don't have to move hurricane freight to take advantage of this because those hurricane loads are pulling trucks from other places. It's like when the oil fields, crank up. And even if you don't want to go to the oil fields, you have to understand that changes supply and demand everywhere. And if you're not here, we'll go back to that example. If you're not watching this again and you don't realize that spot market rates just jumped because of the hurricane and you're not thinking about that, you're probably going to book a load and negotiate for less than what you should be negotiating for.
For sure.
Yeah. We have our rates insights tool, Kevin, that also can help with that. TruckStop's been around for 20 plus years. We have historical rate data from that time that we use in our rate insights tool. So that's going to have market rate data, which shows you kind of real-time market rate information for today, like what are the current rates for specific lanes. So you can see what carriers are charging and what shippers and brokers are willing to pay. But then also it has historical rate data. So you actually get to see a trend chart of historical information to see how has this lane or the price for this lane changed over time. And you can then see those fluctuations or the seasonal fluctuations, which also can help as you're thinking about planning maybe your next month or your next few weeks, to see what happened during hurricane season in these lanes, in previous years. You can look at that, and that can also help you negotiate rates or know where you should set your bottom line at.
Yeah, Brent, you just gave us the example of going back to 2017 and checking what, July 4th does. Mm-hmm. How long did that take you?
Oh, it took me, because I get the data, because the truck stop and because I have the data. It took me about 3 minutes.
Exactly, right. Right.
So, yeah. It's good. Well, Kevin, you bring up a point. We at Truck Stop want to be a partner. We want to be a partner to the owner-operator in helping them, just like you want to be a partner to the owner-operator to help them create a successful business. And that's the reason. By the way, Truck Stop publishes this information every Monday in the Spot Market Insights email. And if any carrier wants it, just reach out to Truck Stop and we'll send it to you for free. Just reach out and say, hey, I want access to that. But we publish this data to the marketplace because we know it's important for the marketplace to have access to it. So we don't try to keep it just for ourselves. there's certain things we need to build products out of because we need to make a living too. But there's lots of things we want to provide to the market where it helps them run their business. It took me literally 3 minutes to find this out because I wanted to make sure what were the percentage drops on the typical year over year to see how unique was a 26-point drop in 2024 as compared to the other years, and how does that impact things? And so obviously that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about one more kind of high level thing, and then we'll wrap this up because we blew right through that hour.
Always do.
One of the things I always try to do is take what is perceived as a negative or a disadvantage and turn it around. And one of the biggest negatives I hear about, being an owner operator, being a driver, I've heard it forever, and I get it. It is a negative. If you're single, it's one thing. If you've got a family, being away is hard. It really is. I get that.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably one of the most difficult things about this business opportunity we talk about. But we can turn that into a positive. If you are going to run freight over the road, you're going to be away from home. There's just no way around it. It's part of the job. But here's the other thing. I can tell you this. This time of year, summertime, I get a lot less work done because I want to be out doing other things. People want to get together on the weekends
Sure.
and have cookouts and all. When I was on the road, you miss a lot of that. And you could make that a negative. But you chose this career, and that's a part of it. Why not make that a positive? Take that time to go study this stuff, to understand these things. You have fewer distractions. Trying to get me to study this kind of stuff on a nice summer day, probably not going to happen. But if I'm out on the road and I don't have a whole lot to do and I'm not with the family and I'm missing out on things, that's when I like to take that kind of time and learn these things that we might not otherwise take the time to do.
Right. So true.
All right. One more thing, and then we'll wrap this up. First off, thanks, Drew, for joining us today, and looking forward to putting together a really powerful tutorial on this. But in the meantime, you have lots of tools. Is there a tool to help us understand all the tools? Like, can I pick up the phone and call somebody at Truck Stop and say, can you help me with this?
Yeah, well, obviously, if you're not yet a customer, we have a sales team that can help and show you demos and give you insight into how to use the tools. If not, we have a support team that can help. And then we have videos as well of instructions for how to use all of these different areas of the tools as well. And those are available from the help menu, or call into our support line, and we're happy to help and can direct and send you that content or walk you through it if needed. Yeah, so
we're going to put together, I think we're going to put together, well, we will do it for the CMC, whether we open it up to everybody, I'm not sure yet. We will put together a great program for this, but don't wait for that. Start now. Go in, watch some videos. If there's something maybe that isn't clear about the video, pick up the phone and call somebody, but don't wait. Start learning how to use the Truck Stop tools now, because they're really powerful, and many of you are already paying for them. You're just not using them. Any final words? Anybody?
Yeah. No, I would just say you can go to truckstop.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a resources section of our website that gives you access to our blog, other partners, review stories, and then there's training and webinar opportunities there. So click into that, take a look at it, look at our YouTube channel. There's all sorts of partners that also put together content for Truck Stop that also gives tips and tricks as you get going. But yeah, Kevin, thank you for giving me this time to join as well and share about how Truck Stop can help carriers.
Absolutely. Brent,
yeah, Kevin, we've got, we appreciate it, man. We've got somebody who handles every part of our business on behalf of the customer, and Drew leads that for us. And so it's important that just like everything that you have access to in your life, are you maximizing it? And then the thing I would say, you talked about this a moment ago, Kevin, when you said that one of the best things you can do is just educate yourself on the tools that you have to run your business the most effectively. And I don't expect anybody to know everything about it. Heck, I've got an iPhone sitting on my desk that I use, and I don't know how to use all of it, but I know how to use the things that get the best return for me. And
Yep.
so dig in. If you'll do a little research, understanding on how to do effective load searching, understanding how to do understand the rates in a marketplace, understanding how to do those things, man, it'll make your trucking business so much more enjoyable. And that's really what we want. You want that for the carrier. We want that for the carrier every single time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up for today. I'm going to open up the phone lines, and I'll hang out for a little while taking some calls. Brent, thanks as always. And Drew, this was awesome. I look forward to working with you more.
Yeah, thanks all. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Talk to you next week. You got it. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. All right. Phone lines are open. It is a free-for-all. It looks like I've got a call coming in already. If you want to jump in and join us, 855-950-3835. We can talk about truck stop tools. We can talk about the topic we've been on for this first hour, or you can talk about anything at all. Pick up the phone and join us. Hit that call now button on your app, or if you're watching on the video stream, dial 855-950-3835, or type a question into the chat. And my camera just quit again. I have a fix for this. I think I have a fix for this. I think my camera is going off because I'm using a cheap third-party cord. And Aaron ordered me a good OEM cord for this camera, so I'll work on that later today. Jump in and join us. I'm going to get to the calls, and I'll hang out as long as you've got questions. Let's get started in Texas today. Cole, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, love hearing from Brett. That's Brett. That was a pretty interesting conversation. I just wanted to touch on something that I kind of found about the truck stop recently. Is they have you can sort by a minimum rate on the load board. So the problem that I've been noticing, and you probably know what I'm talking about here, we sometimes get too obsessed with the rate per mile, and we don't look at the rate, meaning how much dollars it pays.
Good point. Yeah.
And so, like, you know, and I've been running van lately instead of my flatbed, and so I'm having to take a lot cheaper rates. And it's it can be a little bit disappointing, you know. But
Yeah.
when you understand what you're running for on average, and the money you need to make per day to pay the bills, those $3 a mile loads that you see all over the place, even for van, there's still $3 a mile loads for van all over the place, but sometimes those don't actually pay. Meaning, you know, a $3 a mile load for 50 miles won't even cover the daily costs of the business.
Yeah, I was going to say the big picture here, again, we can look at is the shorter the overall run, the higher the per mile rate needs to be. I mean, that's just in general, because you've got to get paid for your time, and every load's going to have a pickup time and a delivery time. You're going to lose time at both ends. And if you've got a 2,000 mile length of haul, those aren't nearly as important. If you're picking up and delivering a load in the same day, they're really important. You've got to get, like you said, just a minimum rate just to cover your fixed cost for the day before you can even come close to profit. So a lot of people get so hung up on that
Hey, I've
per
got to
mile
talk to the
rate.
shipper here.
Oh, go ahead. All right.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Good talking to you. All right. Let's move on then. Let's go to Tennessee. Ilya, welcome.
Morning, Kevin. How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Well, quick.
Uh-oh. Ilya, did we lose you? I'm going to put Ilya back in the queue and see if we can bring that call back. I'm not hearing anything. Let's go to Michigan. Mike, welcome.
Hi. I've been a user of truckstop.com for decades. The last time they did an update, they did away with some things, and one of them was the most important thing I ever used there. It was called Past Watch,
Oh,
which
yeah.
allowed you to see the loads during the day that were moving that have already been gone. And am I missing something? I don't think they ever come back with anything even similar to that.
You know, one of the things I should have done maybe today, but a lot of times we don't get a lot of interaction on a day like today. I probably should have left time for caller questions, and we'll get Drew back and we'll do that, because this is a perfect caller question that I can't answer. I do remember Past Watch, and that wasn't, I liked that too. My guess is there's something very similar, but I can't answer that for sure, but we'll get that answer for you.
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to be open to ask questions, but didn't happen.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
there are
Catch 'em on
times
that.
where we bring a guest in and I ask for questions, we never get any, and then, you know, we kind of keep trying to get some, and today probably would have been a good one to open up questions for, but we'll get Drew back and we'll do that. In fact, next time we'll bring Drew
All right.
back and it will only be Q&A.
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Thanks for the call.
All right.
Yeah, that is a good one. We need to get an answer for that one. Let's go to Arkansas. Kenny, welcome to the program.
So, yes, I am wanting to get my authority. I've been looking into it for a while. I'm convinced that's what I want to do. I can finance it. Finance is not a problem.
Okay.
I have an LLC from an old business. I sold the business. The money's in that LLC still. I have a lot of options on moving it out of that into a new LLC, or keeping this one and just doing the DBA. Or as a sole proprietor and me driving a truck, I'm not even sure I need an LLC. I'm kind of lost in the options on that.
So
And
I'd
like to get that straightened out before
Yeah,
I can get my authority.
let me help you with that. And you're right. You need to get this figured out before you start the authority process. So I'm glad you're asking. When you say sole proprietor, are you married by chance?
No.
Okay. Then unless you're willing to take on a partner, let me try to think this through. I would get rid of the LLC and I would start an S corp, because I'm not sure if we can do this properly with an LLC or not.
Right.
No, maybe we could. You could still choose to have your single person LLC taxed as an S corp. It's the other way around. So yeah, you would be fine. You could keep. Now, what was the other business?
It was a farm.
Okay. So there's no real worry about some sort of liability coming back on that. I mean, there's no, big unhappy customer.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of risk in
I'm not
that.
real concerned about it. I'd like to change the name into some type of transport name versus a farm name.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to just get rid of it altogether if I could,
Well, are you currently working as an owner operator at all? Are you leased to somebody, or is this going to be a brand new startup?
I have been a leased operator in the past. I've not been doing anything with the truck I've got one now that I've been working locally for a little while.
Got
But
it. So
in other words, it's kind of new to me, but I'm not new to the industry at all.
got it. So here's the thing. In our current market with financials the way they are, almost every owner operator should be making more than, say, $60,000 a year right now, net after all expenses. If you're not, you're going to really be struggling with inflation and everything going on. So what that means, in my opinion, is almost every owner operator should be an S corp. strictly for taxes, nothing else. I don't care about liability protection and, corporate credit and all that other bullshit they try to sell you on late night commercials. But you should be an S Corp simply for taxes. We can save money on taxes having the S Corp. That's the only reason I might encourage you to keep the LLC. Here's what I would really recommend, though. This is more of a legal question right now than anything. I can tell you that if you're getting your own authority, you're going to want to be taxed as an S Corp. So you can either form an S Corp or you can keep your LLC and choose to have it taxed as an S Corp. But what I would want you to do is just get legal advice within your state on how to do this right.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But I would say don't
my
operate as a sole
understanding-
proprietor. You'll end up paying too much tax.
Right. Okay. Well, my understanding that the LLC is not going to offer you much protection as long
It doesn't.
as you're the guy
It
driving the
doesn't.
truck, so
That's why I don't even talk about protection with an S Corp or an LLC.
Right.
There really isn't any. If you make a big enough mistake, they're coming after you, whether you have a corporation or not. Most of the time, though, here's the other thing that most people don't realize. Whether you screw up or not, if you are this small, what we're talking about, one truck, it really doesn't matter. They're not coming after you anyway. What do most now? You might be an exception to this. If you own a bunch of farmland, there might be a lot of value there, and you might want to at least talk to somebody about, is there any way to protect that? Most people, really, most small businesses don't have enough assets that anybody's going to bother coming after them. They're going to go after your insurance company. They're going to go after everything else. But if they can't get $1 million out of you, they're probably not going to bother.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not in that category. I mean, they wouldn't be after me. They would be after the insurance. And that's the other thing that I've planned to do is have pretty good insurance.
Exactly.
Make sure-
That's the best protection.
And okay, well, that's what I'm trying to sort through. I'm wanting to get this authority started, but I keep getting hung up on what I need to do with the incorporation or the LLC.
I would, in my opinion, I'll give you should be taxed as an S Corp, whether that's forming a new S Corp or keeping the LLC and switching it. The legal part, I would just have an attorney handle. Just make sure it gets done right.
Okay. Right. Okay. I've got access to that. So
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's see if we've got Ilya back. Ilya, did we save it?
I think so.
I think we did. All right. What's on your mind?
Nice. I was calling about an oil sample I sent in.
All right. I'm looking at it here. This looks like a really good sample. This is a D13, right?
Correct. The first sample there is before I purchased the truck, and the second sample was the same oil, I believe at like 12,000 miles, and this is the same oil now at 25,000 miles.
Got it. So really the only thing flagged on this whole sample, the only thing that even comes close, forget the boron, that's kind of meaningless. The base, but you're at 3. And 3 is where we used to get worried because we used to say if you get under about 2.5, you should probably add some base. I'm not too worried about this anymore. I mean, we can get down a lot closer to 1 these days with these engines, and we're not seeing any problems. You could throw some base in if you want, but that's really the only thing. This is a really good-looking sample. Your wear metals are really low. There's no fuel dilution whatsoever, no soot at all. Viscosity is just about perfect. No dirt's getting in the engine. It's just a really clean sample other than base, and base just isn't that important anymore.
Okay, and I think that's like a normal thing that Joel usually talks about, right? Just adding base to it.
Yeah, you can buy some base. I think Hot Shot Secret makes a base. Pittsburgh Power sells something, and we just add some base, and everything will be fine. And you don't even have to add it yet. I mean, you're still in pretty good shape, honestly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Kansas. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hi, I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. The question I have, I worked for a company that, and I know it was wrong, but it was a way to get my foot in the door. It's the only reason why I did it. It was technically a company position that was forced to get an LLC for me. Well, the company fired me. Eventually, I would like to get my own truck, but right now I'm with another company that is, I'm a company driver in their truck.
Okay.
So should I shut the LLC down or what?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I just let it sit there. It's not hurting anything being there. The cost is minimal. You just pay a filing fee every year. If you were telling me, look, I have no plans anytime in the next 3 years, then I might say, yeah, well, go ahead and dissolve it and we'll restart another one. But if your plan is to just start working towards getting a truck, I would leave it there for now.
Okay. And I also have something else I would like to talk about. That's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
I was on diabetes medicine and on all kinds of pills. And because I quit taking the pills, quit doing the diabetes type 2 and eating better, I've managed to come back to work full time, got rid of the so-called seizures I had, which was actually the seizures, the medication that was supposed to help prevent them was actually giving them to me.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So I don't take any pills anymore unless it's Tylenol or aspirin, something like that.
That's outstanding.
And I feel better. I'm going to sleep on my own. And it's just, I'm glad I finally took your advice and just said, enough's enough.
Good. Glad to hear it. And the beauty of this, it works every time. It is.
Yes, sir.
It
I
is
try to eat.
Shocking to me how many people are taking multiple toxic pharmaceutical drugs with all kinds of side effects, and we can fix this with food.
Well, the weird part about it, I don't even wear glasses anymore. That's the kicker.
That
I didn't have any issues till after I got out of the service. Then I started getting, the VA started prescribing pills to me.
I've heard this several times, and I'm a little jealous because I got a ton of benefits when I started eating the right way. Joint pain went away, brain fog went away, my energy levels went through the roof. I lost weight, I feel better, I feel stronger. So many advantages. My eyesight did not get better. And for me, glasses are kind of a hassle because I read all the time. And I wish I could read without glasses. I can't anymore. And I have a feeling that's part of the reason why my eyes won't heal, because I read so much. Our eyes really aren't designed to be staring at tiny little words on paper, screens, anything like that, as much as I do. But I've heard this from people, and I think it's incredible. I just wish it would have happened for me.
Still have to, if I read certain things, it's better for my glasses, but I don't have to wear them all the time like I used to.
Right. No, that's awesome. I mean, now I will say this. I did the last 4 days, no computers, no phone, no nothing. I wasn't looking at screens. I did a little bit of reading at night, mostly just for enjoyment. And it was maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then I was falling asleep. Two things happened when I got away from the screens, got away from work, spent all my time outdoors. I was sleeping in a tent the last 4 nights, which was pretty awesome too. And I would not wear my glasses during the day. And normally I just leave them on all the time because I do see better distance with them and I can read with them. But I just decided I'm just going without them. Maybe my eyes need a break. And the longer I went without them, the better my vision was. Not so much for reading, but just overall. I realized that I think the glasses actually make my eyes weaker. And I'm going to try to spend as much time as I can with them off now.
Well, there is a couple other things I need to say, but this is my gratitude towards you. I was a trainer at one of the one of the companies I was with years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's now a friend of mine. We were talking. He said he wanted his own book. I said, you need to listen to the Kevin Rutherford show. Listen to everything. He now has his own day cab running under, I guess, somebody else's DOT, but doing his own thing.
Good.
However that works.
Yeah.
And because he listened to my advice to listen to you, he is now doing his own thing by himself.
Excellent.
And making
good
money at it.
Thanks for sharing. I love that.
So your show is very important. But I will let you go. I just wanted to let you know about all that and tell you thank you for what you do.
All right. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. All right. We're going to wrap this up for today. We will see you back here tomorrow for the Power Hour. My schedule might be a little up in the air this week, although I think I'm just going to end up doing all the shows. And then I'm going to look at my calendar again and figure out when I'm going to take a week off, because I am going to take a week off sometime soon. So we'll see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.